Hey everybody, welcome to Stories with Sapphire Live. I am your Ate Sapphire. So this is a live stream that I do every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific. I get so many emails and messages that I can't always include in the podcast, so I thought that I could read them for you live. And I don't read them ahead of time. So it might get weird. It might get strange, but that's okay. That's fun. All right, cool. So this one's kind of long, so bear with me if you leave. That's fine. I don't mind. Also, hello, Instagram Live. If you want to participate in the chat, head over to right here. Where is it? Right here. Twitch.tv/Sapphire Sandalo. Okay, so this first story comes from, I don't know how to say this properly. I'm sorry, Menahil. Hi, Sapphire. I'm 15 years old and really excited to send you this story. I've always loved writing stories. It is kind of like my passion, and I would be delighted if you read this on your channel. I love all your videos. They are great. Yay. Well, you are great, Menahil. I hope I pronounced it right. All right, cool. Here we go. Oh, I hope it's not too long. All right. Buckle up. As I was sitting in my bed, trying to relax after an exhausting day, I heard a noise coming from within the depths of my room not far away. It sounded really close. I heard it again, closer this time, and again, even closer. I stood up and looked around. Silence. I couldn't hear it anymore, but I was relieved. But shit, I was relieved but alarmed too. I sat back on my bed. I got dizzy and everything went black. I couldn't move when I woke up. My body was paralyzed, but I could open my eyes. I was lying in bed. It wasn't my room, but looked oddly familiar. I could see the door. I tried to move, but couldn't. I was helpless, so I closed my eyes and tried to relax. A minute or two had passed when I heard the door open. I opened my eyes and saw a man standing in front of the door with a sharp tool in his right hand. I couldn't see his face. He walked up to me. I closed my eyes. Suddenly, I felt something slicing through my chest. It was excruciating. I screamed in pain and opened my eyes, only to find myself standing in front of me, covered in splatters of blood. I fainted again. I woke up and found myself standing on a bridge this time, facing the water that was running underneath. It flickered like glitter on the surface and splashed as it ran through the huge rocks. Mesmerized by the sight, I didn't realize that someone had come and stood behind me. I was about to turn when I felt a hard push. I fell into the cold water. I couldn't swim and slowly sank to the bottom. My breath froze and I choked. I moved my arms around but kept sinking deeper and deeper into the darkness. I was desperate and kept gasping for air, which didn't really help. The pressure of water caused a stabbing pain in my eyes and ears. I knew I was dying, but there was nothing I could do. I was miserable. Almost solidified. I couldn't move a single muscle, and I had lost all hope of survival. I couldn't keep up anymore. I closed my eyes to meet my end. But that never happened. I couldn't feel the cold water in my skin anymore, so I opened my eyes and found myself sitting on a couch with a glass of orange juice on my left. I picked it up and chugged it down. I didn't want to, but I couldn't control myself. Something was overpowering me. The liquid burned as it ran down my throat. I could feel it soaring everywhere it went through. I choked, my stomach blasted, and I felt blood coming out of my nose. My mouth foamed up, and I couldn't breathe. I threw up and saw little pieces of my internal organs within. My heartbeat was slow, really slow, and I felt lightheaded. I was exhausted. I screamed and felt my vocal cords vibrate. I dropped down to the floor, hitting my head on the table nearby, and fainted again. I woke up in my bedroom. Nothing strange this time, but I was cautious, ready for anything at that point. However, nothing happened. Was it just a dream? But it felt so real. Was I being warned about something? That can't be possible. I had been thinking about my missions a lot lately. Probably the thoughts just made up illusions in my mind, right? I should give it. I should give it in then. Okay. I will stop. What? Sorry. I will stop. What I do is wrong, and I know that I have no other choice. I was thinking to quit when my phone buzzed. I picked it up. A new mission awaited me, and it just might be the last one. I took the red package. It was heavy. I held it up and looked inside. It had everything that I needed to accomplish my goal today. It was my last task. My family had settled, and I didn't need any more money. My daughter was doing great, too. She had been fighting against cancer for a long time. I couldn't see her die. I was miserable when I took this path. I had no choice. I loved her too much to see her suffer like this. She'd look at me and say that she was doing just fine, but we both knew it wasn't true. That's when I made a hard decision, but it was worth it. She was getting better. I'd see her playing around like she used to. I was overwhelmed with happiness, and I didn't need more money after this. I left for the mall where I had to implant this device. As I entered, I saw a little girl running around with a birthday hat. She looked really happy. Her cackle was like a bullet through my heart. I saw her parents walking after her with lots of gifts. My eyes were shining with the threat of tears. I watched her play. I looked around myself and saw several happy families. Some were having lunch together, while some were just having a little get-together. Misery fitted across my face. I didn't want to be the reason for spoiling these moments, but I had to. I took the device and attached it under a table with grave sadness. While I was working on the timer, my phone buzzed. It was my wife. I didn't attend the call. I was really busy for that right now. She called me again, and it was really distracting, so I switched my phone off. I switched it back on when I left the place and saw that I had a voicemail from her. She sounded really excited. She said that our daughter was feeling much better and wanted to go out somewhere, so they were waiting for me at the mall. The mall? It was the same mall that was going to be burned to ashes in a few minutes. I called her back with shaking hands, but she wasn't picking up. I couldn't think clearly. Not knowing what to do, I ran back to the mall. I couldn't let this happen. I ran with all my strength, tripping over small objects in the way, but I didn't care. I had to save my family. I was close now, really close. When it happened, I heard a loud blast. I froze and saw huge flames coming towards me, destroying everything in their path. I didn't run back. There was no use. I watched as the cruel flames engulfed me. Small sheets of skin sloughed off my body. The blackened chunks of flesh struck the ground and continued to smolder. Blood bubbled and steamed as it spilled out from my wounds. I didn't think I would make it out alive as I fainted. I heard voices very near at hand, as if just behind my ear, talking together quietly. I opened my eyes. The light was blinding. I had bright wires attached to me, and I realized that I was laying in a hospital bed. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. One of the doctors saw me struggling and came close to uncover my biggest fear. My family couldn't survive the blast. Nothing of their corpses remained. They were burned alive along with 500 other people. I refused to believe it, but in the depths of my heart, I knew it was the reality. The guilt was too much to take in. What had I done? I killed the people that I had sacrificed my life for. I also found out that I only had a few hours left to live. I wasn't really affected by the news. I deserved it. I decided to donate all my organs to people who needed it after I pass away. I had been the reason of ending several lives, including my loved one, so I wanted to help and save lives after my death. I'm here in the hospital right now, waiting to meet my end and waiting to see my family again. What? What? I don't know who in here Listen to that whole thing. Menahill. That's crazy. That was really good. Maybe didn't need all the dream stuff in the beginning. I feel like I could have just started at the mission part, but that was like really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, I need to create manage labels. Oopsies, that's not what I wanted to do. Dealing, waiting for death. Oh man, that was fun. Okay, put that in the red pile. Apply, save. Thank you, Minahel. Again, that was awesome. All right, let's pick a shorter one. Hi, Purple Diamond 1257. How are you? Tessa! Tessa, are you still here? This is so embarrassing. I'm just trying to get people over to my Twitch, but I don't think people are, and that's fine. Okay. Whew, that was too heavy of a story to start with. I'm so sorry. I promised fun spooks. That was sad spooks. Okay. Let's see if we can find a shorter one. No, I don't want that one. Okay. Your podcast is the reason why I'm still alive. I hope you're being hyperbolic, but thank you for the sentiment. Oh man. Okay. Malian horror story? Did I already read that one? No. Sorry. This is what happens when I'm not prepared. Okay, here's a short one. Okay, so this one's called The Weird Lady. Is submitted by a Madison. Okay. Again, have not read these ahead of time, so I'm trying to correct grammar and stuff before it's hard. Anyways, all right, here we go. Hello, I have been listening to your podcast episodes and I have a story from my past. Oh. Oops. Crap. They want to be anonymous. Yikes. You know what? We're not going to read that one then. I guess I gave away the name and then I'd feel really bad. This is what happens when I don't read things ahead of time. Okay, here we go. Ooh. Why did my live video pause? What happened? Okay. All right, here's a shorter one. Okay, this is from Angelo. Hi, Ate Sapphire. My name is Angelo and I'm from Metro Manila. I would like to share this story with you as told by my parents. They were at my aunt's house. We'll call her Glenda, not her real name. She lives alone and is very atheistic, unlike the rest of her siblings who are very much religious. Every attempt by my parents and her siblings to convert her to Roman Catholicism was turned down or ignored. One day, this was around the Christmas season. All my aunt's siblings were there together with their own families, like a family reunion. Just to give a background of the setting. She lives in a private village, but behind her house was a vacant lot with tall grass. As they were finishing up dinner, they talked her into changing her mind and consider Catholicism again. Later on, a loud, guttural growl was heard in the vacant field behind her house. They described it as not humanly or not from any animal they have heard before. Of course, they were all scared, so they huddled in the kitchen, talking about what they just heard. A few years later, my aunt became weaker, just enough to move on her own, but old enough to require help from a maid. So my other aunt, Ellie, not her real name, offered to lend her maid just for 3 days. During the nights of the maid's stay, she told Aunt Ellie and Aunt Glenda that she dreamt of devilish figures in her room, and she even said she couldn't breathe at times. She also heard knocking outside the wooden floor of her room. But Aunt Glenda dismissed those stories, saying nothing ever really came up when she was alone. Scary stuff. Thank you for sending that in, Angelo. That's like, it's just such a Filipino story. Where it's like, ooh, if you don't believe in God, if you're not Catholic, then stuff's gonna happen, stuff's gonna go down. I just feel like that's a very Filipino Catholic story. Nothing wrong with it, just very Filipino. All right, thank you, Angelo. Let me move this to red so that I don't read it again. All right, let's see if we can find... No, not that one. Okay. How's everybody doing? Oh my god, I'm like so shiny and sweaty. Which is just like a cool feature to have right now. Why is my computer doing this? Hi, Crazy Diamond 67. How are you? Okay, so we got 2 short ones. All right, here we go. This is from Sudi. In high school, my friends and I were messing around with the Ouija board one night. We had done it before, and nothing remarkable had ever happened. We usually did it to try and scare each other or our girlfriends. We all thought it was a joke. That night, there was no one else home except the 7 of us, and we were all together around the board. One of the girls there wanted to try it. She'd never done it before. This time was different. The board misspelled some of the words the same way every time. It gave answers that seemed really historically accurate for our town, things we neither knew or cared about. Long story short, the spirit claimed it was a 10-year-old boy who had died on the property in the 1800s and was buried there too, in an unmarked grave. My friend's house was on a farm on the edge of town. We were all a little freaked out because the board had never been so detailed and consistent. However, we were still skeptical, and we were all assuming one of us was trying to scare the rest. Finally, my friend asked if the spirit could do something to prove he was there with us. It went to yes, and then spelled out Knock. Then the planchette stopped moving. We just all stared silently, and then there was on the window right next to us. The lights were on outside, and there was absolutely no one out there. We never touched that effing board again. Thank you, Sudi. You know, I'm so torn about Ouija boards. I definitely used to be super afraid of them. Like, wouldn't touch them, wouldn't go near it, wouldn't play with them. But, I mean, I've used it several times. I own so many. There's so many Ouija board things in my room, it's a lot. But I just view it as a tool. Like, the object alone isn't harmful until you put an intention in it. And my intention is never to, conjure something that is harmful. And then people say, well, you don't know what you're dealing with. Whatever. I mean, the whole, whatever you all know about Ouija boards, I don't need to tell you. All right, here's another short one. This one comes from Bryce. Okay. This is based on a true story. I live in the Philippines, but I have Chinese blood. That meant we did the Chinese cultures like burning heaven money. One of those cultures, okay. Let me read this again. Sorry. Again, reading these for the first time, so sometimes I will stumble on errors. That meant we did the Chinese traditions, like burning heaven money. One of those traditions was having an altar for deceased ancestors. My grandparents' altars were hidden in a room in the attic, and a picture of my great-great-grandmother, remember the altar, it is important to the story. This story was told to me by my Lolo on All Saints' Day 2018. The night before All Saints' Day, he would do the usual things at night, like watch Netflix and the news on TV. Totally normal, right? That night at 3 a.m., he had a bad dream that he saw my great-great-grandmother's ghost coming from the direction of the attic and started pulling him tightly and warning him that something bad is going on. I don't think it was a dream because he woke up sitting, sweating, and he still felt his arm was recently grabbed. So after that, he just went back to sleep thinking it was a bad dream. But he got woken up at 6 a.m. by my grandmother, who got a call from the cemetery that my great-grandfather and another late relative's urns were stolen. But the weird part was my great-great-grandmother's urn wasn't stolen, even though all the urns were beside each other. I have no explanation why my great-great-grandmother's urn wasn't stolen. Maybe the person, if it was a person, knew that her soul wasn't in the urn. I'm not sure why, but this story still gives me and my family chills after all these years. What? Why are people stealing urns? Is that a thing? That's crazy. Don't steal people's ashes. Like, what? Are the urns put in something valuable? Is that why? Like, I can't even imagine why anyone would do that. Like, what is actually the goal? What? Ay. Well, thank you, Bryce, for sending that in. Now that's just gonna weird me out for several reasons. Like, what? Oh my gosh, I don't know if you can hear. My stomach keeps making weird sounds, and I am so sorry. Oh my god, 1 down's here! I don't know who's logged into the account right now, but hello, whoever you are. If it's Grazian or Leo. Okay. Here's another short one. This one's from Raphael. Just a reminder, don't read these ahead of time, so sorry if I stumble. When I was 13 years old, I got sent to military school for 6 months. One evening, me and my friend got in trouble for play fighting, and our punishment was that we couldn't go to the dinner hall. We had to stay back at the barracks, aka home, and wait for them to come back with our dinner. So it's just us two all alone in the barracks when we decided to take a walk around the building. The building is made up of 3 floors. We lived on the second. When we get to the first floor, as we are walking, we see a little girl dressed in all white leaning on the wall in the middle of the hallway. We thought nothing of it, probably one of the drill sergeant's daughters. As we approached the little girl, we noticed that she vanished. We checked all the rooms, no sign of anybody. At that point, we were freaked out. Finally, the rest of the crew got back, and the first thing we did was tell the drill sergeants about what we just saw. They disregarded us and said, "Oh, please, you cadets have been saying this for years, about this little girl in a dress." Both our mouths dropped, because we knew for sure we saw that little girl. Later on, we found out that a girl was named Emily, age 6, and she died on that property over 50 years ago. Whoa. Thank you for... Sorry. Thank you for sending that in. Who sent that in? Raphael. I want to know why they punish you for play fighting. Like, that feels excessive to me. Anyways. Yeah, I love a classic tiny girl in a white dress story. Okay, well, thank you for sending that in. Let's see, how much time do we have? We got time to read a couple more. And anyone who's watching, if you want to send me a story for the next stream, you can send it to storieswithsapphire@gmail.com. Ooh, okay. This one's from Ava. This story happened when I was probably around 5 or 6 years old, and I can still remember it as if it was yesterday. It was just another day at school. The bell rang for recess. I remember seeing the older kids sitting on a wall that bordered the playground. I was still too short to get on top. Anyways, I had always thought the big kids were cool, but I wish I never went up to them. They began telling me the story about Bloody Mary. If you aren't aware of the name, Bloody Mary, or at least how I was told, the story was a young girl was buried alive by mistake. And way back when, they'd put bells beside the grave, so if this mistake ever took place, they could ring the bell. Mary's bell fell. She tried clawing her way from the grave, tearing her nails from her fingers, till she was completely drenched in blood. Mary was enraged, and to get her revenge, she put her disfigured self in a mirror, and some say you can summon her if you turn off all the lights and spin around 3 times, chanting her name. You will supposedly summon her. Anyways, back to the story. The big kids looked down on me and said, "Let's try it." Next thing I knew, I was dragged down the school hallway into the washroom. The kids pushed me in and stood in front of the door so I couldn't get out. They then shut the lights off and said I couldn't come out till I summoned her. At the time, I was really scared of the dark, and this only made it worse. I eventually got the courage to do it quickly so I could get out of there. I spun around 3 times, chanting, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." Then I saw her. A girl, long white gown, covered in blood, scratches all over her face from her fingers and her frown. And a frown. She looked so sad. I screamed and ran to the washroom door, begging for them to let me out. The kids ran, unblocking the door and letting me out as I cried until the end of recess. I'm 16 now. Until this day, mirrors still scare me. There's one thing I always wondered, though. Was it just my child's imagination, or was she really there? And if she was, why was she so sad? Oh. Thank you, Ava, for sharing. That's so interesting. I feel like there's so many different versions of Bloody Mary, and this is a version I have never heard of. I've never heard of her being a small girl who was buried alive. Most of the ones I hear of an adult woman, some where she had babies and killed them, or she was a murderer. Yeah, there's like a million different versions. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, there's something that I heard of that, where did I hear this? This is somebody's YouTube channel, and it was a guy who was explaining why Bloody Mary seems to work. And apparently, if you are in the dark and your only light source is a candle, and if you spin around, it creates an optical illusion, and you see your face in the mirror, and it appears like warped and red. I haven't tried this yet. I probably should. But he said that is the origin of this game, you know. It doesn't mean that it's not real, that you can't summon her. Wait, my audio's cutting out? Oh, you know what? I think maybe my connection's bad. Okay. Good to know. Oh, no. Okay, that's fine. Anyways, what was I saying? Okay. That's enough about Bloody Mary. What time is it? 5:31? All right. We got to wrap it up. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me every Wednesday, 5 to 5:30 Pacific. I go live here on twitch.tv/Sapphire Sandalo. Oh my gosh, Neil! Hi, Neil. How are you? Anyway, sorry guys. Yeah, same time next week. I think, will I be in town? Yes, I'll be here. So same time next week. A new episode of my podcast did come out today. It's called Creature Companions. It's not a scary one. It is a kind of sad one. I talk about my dog. There's also a story of somebody who lost a lion that they were very close to. But there's also a really creepy story in the middle of those stories that I think about all the time, called the Elmo Hand. So definitely go check it out. And I will see you all next week. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.